Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is In Case You Missed It from Kates-Boylston for the week ending Friday, October 11th, 2024. Before we get started, I want to remind you that we are still selling tickets for our Advances in Funeral Innovations Conference, November 12th and 13th in Houston, Texas. As a listener, we are offering a discount, and our discount for the listeners is $50 off of the registration cost. And you can get that $50 off by punching in FSI Podcast. That is all caps, all one word, FSI PODCAST, to receive $50 off. We've been running special insight stories and, of course, bonus podcast episodes in support of this event. It's going to be a lot of fun. It always is. It's the kind of event that people go to a second time. Like, once you've been to one of our events, you're more likely to come back than to not. So anyway, you can get a link to that in the show notes, or go to Kates-Boylston.com. Actually, go to events.kates-boylston.com. Link in the show notes. This week, just for fun, I wanted to include something from Australia, because we get actually a lot of Australian and UK funeral news. They do a really good job of covering their industry. But it's illegal to be buried with your pet's cremated remains in Australia, which I didn't know. In many, if not most, of the Australian states, certainly in Victoria. And they are trying to change the law, because for now, if you're buried in a public cemetery, you cannot be a non-human animal. But people like to be, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, people like to be buried with their pets, or to have their pets' remains put in their casket, or with their own remains when they're interred. So, or, obviously in their columbaria as well. So that's not something that's so odd here. And it's surprising to hear that, in Australia, which is a non-human animal heavy continent and country, there's no provision for that. So, I'll keep an eye on it. I expect that. This seems like the kind of thing that you ask for and you get. It's odd to me that it's not allowed. I guess we will keep you posted. But link in the show notes if you want to read the long feature that goes into the different kind of difficulties people are having trying to get around it. Of course, you can be buried with your pets on private land and in private cemeteries. So this is just a public cemetery question, but I figured it's worth taking a look at the story, and it's an interesting cultural difference. Bill Dealey, who is a longtime funeral director in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, was just recognized for 50 years of service by the Pennsylvania Funeral Directors Association. He was born and raised in Punxsutawney. He went to the Pittsburgh School Institute of Mortuary Science and then returned to Punxsutawney for his internship. He bought the Schenkenmeyer Funeral Home after having been a partner there for a while, and renamed it the Dealey Funeral Home, and has continued to serve the community. And he's been expanding since he took over the other funeral home. And just congratulations, Mr. Dealey, on 50 years of service. In other people in funeral service news, Noah Koch, a West Union, Iowa native, has been appointed a funeral director at Grau Funeral Homes, according to FayetteCountyNewspapers.com. In his new role, he'll oversee operations at the Burnham Wood Grau Funeral Home and cremation services in West Union. The company has 5 or 6 other locations on both sides of the state line in Iowa as well as in Wisconsin, and he will serve at them all. And welcome to funeral service there, Noah. An Iowa funeral director has been fined $350 for failing to disclose past disciplinary actions. Ryan M. Ferdergill of Baxter was charged last year by the Iowa Board of Mortuary Science with unethical conduct for not properly disclosing previous disciplinary actions. The board claimed that he answered no on his 2022 application when asked if he had had any disciplinary actions in the previous 5 years. He said no, but there was an action in 2019 for performing cremation without the required authorization form. We usually don't like to do the whole name and shame thing on here, but this was something that was in the paper, and it's something that we felt like we should at least mention as, if nothing else, a reminder that there's nothing more important than making sure that you get all of the forms dotted, all of the T's, all of the forms dotted, all of the T's crossed, and all of the I's dotted when you get these forms filled out. The cremation is something leaves very little room for error, and it's a general reminder that fill out the forms in the right way, because if you get caught at it, not only does it look bad, but there are fines involved, and it's worth the extra 3 seconds to make sure that everything goes well for you and, of course, for your families. Albert Grikoski, who is the owner of Albert Grikoski Funeral Homes in Frackville, Pennsylvania, and has announced that after 33 years, he has sold his business. He's very proud of the fact that he literally built a business with his own 2 hands. He converted and refurbished a building in Frackville so that it could become a funeral home. And after 40 years in the funeral industry, he has decided to call it quits. He has sold the business to Mark Hummel, who is also a Frackville native and who has several other funeral homes in the area. We'll continue to run it as a Hummel funeral home going forward. And now I want to share a couple of stories from our industry news section of Kates-Boylston.com. I'm just going to read the headlines. A lot of times they're kind of self-explanatory, but I do want to encourage you to go to the industry news section of Kates-Boylston.com. Link in the show notes where there are more details and links to the companies mentioned in the next couple of briefs. Funeral Director's Life has been approved to sell pre-need life insurance in Virginia. It is licensed in 48 states and the District of Columbia for selling pre-need. This year it added Michigan as its 47th state. Alix and Alevia have joined forces to integrate estate settlement into aftercare support services. If you're not familiar with Alix, they claim to provide a first-of-its-kind estate settlement platform, and that company, which is based in San Francisco, has announced its partnership with Alevia, formerly Domani Care, a very large and popular aftercare services company. The two companies announced the integration this week, and that will do it for this week, a quiet news week, although I have to encourage you, as I always do, to subscribe or at least take a look at Funeral Service Insider, the newsletter. In case you missed it, is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written, edited, and videoed by me, Tony Russo. Please subscribe wherever you're listening now. I ask that every week, and every week some of you do, so I'll keep asking until no one subscribes. But don't not subscribe to keep me from asking. I would rather have you subscribe, and I'll probably keep asking anyway. Once more, we do have our Advances in Funeral Innovations Conference in Houston, Texas, November 12th and 13th. Please, please, please consider joining us. If you would like to join us and you would like $50 off your registration fee, just type in FSI Podcast at checkout. That is all one word, all caps, FSIPODCAST, and you can find a link to the registration as well as to all the stories we've mentioned in the show notes.